evident that he cares. What do you care about? Welcome to the Rock Newman Show. It's the Rock Newman Show.
Greetings, beloved. My name is Rock Newman, and you are again watching the Rock Newman Show 2.0. Thank you for joining us. We are going to have a special treat today from, I make the claim, I don't know what others say, but I know that I'm right, whatever they say. And that is from the most Afrocentric church in the nation. Union Temple Baptist Church. You might see here this extraordinarily iconic mural that has been there for quite some time. It has been showcased all around the world. And I have a name for today's show. I don't normally do it, but I have a name for today's show. And it is called Washington, D.C.'s First Family of Faith. I want to welcome them individually. Reverend Wilson, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Rock.
Reverend Willie Wilson, that is. Sister Mary Wilson, who was the assistant pastor for many, 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 many years. Lili Wilson, who is the administrator and just runs things over here. And now, Reverend Wilson was here. How many years, Rev?
43.
Rev ran it for 43 years, and he turned over the reins, released it to the able hands of Dr. Anika Wilson-Brown.
Yes,
yeah, Dr.
that's
Anika. And so I started attending Union Temple somewhere around 1989, and so these two children right here, it just so boggles my brain that they all grown up and highly successful. So thank you all so very much for letting me come here in your house and do this today.
Absolutely.
So we could start a whole bunch of places, but let's start here. You know, I run the risk of starting some trouble when I start here.
We know that.
And that is, no, first tell me, Sister Wilson, I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Buffalo, New York.
So you're used to the cold.
I'm used to the cold. I used to be used to the cold.
I hear you. And where else did you grow up where?
Newport News, Hampton, Virginia.
Newport News. Okay, so you're Buffalo, New York, and you're Newport News. How y'all meet? First, you first, sister.
I'll go first. Well, we met. I had heard about this Reverend Willie Wilson before I met him. I guess his reputation preceded him. And I was a singer, and some of my fellow singers were telling me about him, the fact that they had traveled with him. He was a preacher. They were singers. You may have heard of Richard Smallwood and Wesley Boyd and others, and they would tell me about him. But one day I was singing with the Howard Gospel Choir, and he was in the audience, and he came up and introduced himself to me afterwards because I had led a song. And he, you know, he kind of, the way he kind of pimp walked up to me.
Come on now.
You know, hey. And he said, "My name is Willie Wilson." I said, "Oh, I've heard of you." And then we connected. I started telling him who I was singing with and everything. And that was the beginning of what we have today.
Is that the same story you remember?
Different story.
All right.
Different story.
Absolutely different story.
All right.
Okay.
What's your version?
Okay, my version is the truth. Richard Smallwood and Wesley Boyd, I was preaching somewhere and they were singing, and she was in the group. They came up to me and said, "You see how she look at you? She like you." That's what they said. I said, "Well, that's all."
They probably said that fine black sister over there.
Yeah. So then, I shared this story just yesterday, Sunday, as a matter of fact, at the New Southern Rock Baptist Church. She was singing in the choir at that time, not with the Smallwood Singers, but in the choir of Star Bethlehem, a church, and singing this song, "Working Out My Soul's Salvation." So I said, "All right, well, we're going to work out this soul salvation together." And
all
from
right.
that point, started.
Come on. We're going to work it out together.
And from then on, relationship began to build. And then in 1973, we got married.
Man, and you worked it out together.
Worked it out together.
My Lord, my Lord. And out of this union, as they say, we have these beautiful children here.
Yeah.
So look, you guys were born to pastors.
Yes.
I don't even know that many people that were born to pastors, that too.
Yeah.
So let me ask first the big sister. So how was it having two pastors as your parents?
Oh my goodness, a lot of pressure, but a lot of fun
That's
as
what
well.
I want. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like it was the best of both worlds.
Uh-huh.
Church was my family. Most of my friends that I have now, I grew up with in this church. We have long, sustaining relationships. So it was good in that way, but a lot of pressure from the adults. So when you're a PK as a kid, that's what we call ourselves, PK.
What's that?
Preacher's kid.
Preacher's kids.
And you're
okay.
a preacher's kid.
Right.
If you chewing gum in church, they look at you a little different than if somebody else is chewing gum in church. Or if you're playing outside, during service, they look at you a little differently. It's like, I know you not out here. That's what I always say. I know you. I expect them to be out here, but I know you not doing it. So a lot of pressure in that way, just because of the expectations that you should be perfect or not be misbehaving.
So, how much younger are you, Lili?
We're 4 years apart.
About 3 and some change.
So. How did you remember getting that little sister?
Oh, yes.
How'd you feel?
Excited to have a little sister. She was like my little shadow. Yes.
And tell us, so I'm going to ask you, Liv, which one of the mama or the daddy was the disciplinarian? Which of them were the most strict?
Ooh, Dad for sure.
Dad.
Oh, really?
Yes, absolutely. Dad for sure. My mom.
Mom let some stuff go.
Well, yeah, she brought in the nurturing side, even though I did get in a lot of trouble from both. But Mom brought more of the balance of the creative ways of disciplining, and none of them worked. But they were still various ways, put you in a corner, have you write a dissertation. I've written so many dissertations.
So that was a form of correction.
Yes.
I ain't gonna say punishment.
Creative correction.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. But Dad was more strict, as many fathers are.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I wanted to do this was I just so admire what has happened.
Yes.
This 50 years of marriage, you guys, the children, all self-possessed and doing productive things.
Yes.
I want to turn to both of you. And I don't know if it's a fair question, but I don't know how to ask it any better, but sort of what's the magic? What's your formula that you've reared 4 children you know, okay, so the odds of 4 children being all right, that ain't that high. I mean,
True.
that ain't that high. So, you know, what's the formula?
I would say we spent a lot of time with them. We didn't just send them places, we actually took them places. And we pretty much immersed them in our lives, and also we knew how to say no to outside influences in order to kind of be there available to them, knowing that he was a pastor. I wasn't a pastor until later in our marriage, but knowing that I felt that we both couldn't pastor or be those leaders and still have them grow up and be nurtured the way they needed to be. So I spent a lot of time with them, you know, in nurturing them and developing them, and taking them to the duck pond and the playgrounds and all that kind of thing. Yeah. Just making sure that they knew that we were invested in everything they did, going to schools, going to, you know, your parent-teacher conferences and all that kind of thing, making sure that all of that was covered. Did
you feel, Sister Anika, big sister, did you feel frustrated sometimes? She just said want to kind of correct things or kind of monitor. Did you feel any of, oh, my friends are able to do that and I can't do it? Did you feel any of that?
No, I did everything I wanted to do.
You did?
See?
So now.
She's telling on herself.
Now, so then you had a lot of, they had creative
correction.
Yeah.
So you must have had a fair amount of creative rebellion or something like that.
We all did, but I was going to say earlier that the pressure came from without, not from within.
Yes.
What does that mean? Tell me what that means.
Our parents were very, and still are very grounded and very realistic. So we didn't really have a lot of curfews. You know, we had the strict side and we had the creative. Well, we had, all of it was creative. We were always told who we were. As to this day, we stand on the fact of who we are in Christ and who we are as African people. And we always had the nurturing. We had so many parameters that we didn't even realize were actual limitations. For instance, all of our friends came over our house. We just thought we're the fun house, but they did that to protect us. But in our minds, we were free.
All your crew and everybody could
come over anytime.
All times.
So we didn't feel, you know, there was not a lot of pressure like, you can't go to the movies. That's a lot of preachers' kids' stories. You can't, you got to set an example. You got to do this, you got to do that. We didn't feel a lot of that.
So you guys didn't feel a need, because what I'm hearing in another language, if you will, is they were cool.
Yeah,
they were parents.
They were kind of hippie parents a little bit. Afrocentric hippie parents to a degree. You know, around that time, everybody had African Muslim names. There was an identification of Black culture, and it was very important. And within that, there were freedoms because it's not linear, and you don't restrict and box in your children. You give them the tools that they need, and they will grow and expand, and that's what they provided.
Okay, so a little bit after I started to attend the church here, oh my God, so many lessons. I remember part of what came from Rev was the, I'm probably going to misquote you, because I certainly can't do it eloquently like you did. But you said something about the insanity or the absurdity of religiosity. And I just remember that as a person who I think had inclusiveness in my DNA. When I heard you preach to a body of these packed audiences, congregation, and say the fact that you think that you are a Methodist and that makes you better than the Baptists, and you just went down the line of something that made me feel, I grew up in the Catholic Church, you know, as soon as I got grown enough to say no.
Yeah.
I didn't go anymore, and kind of floundered, you know. Man, I remember sitting out there and hearing Rev talk about that message of inclusiveness, and it was like, Lord have mercy, I done found a home. Now, talking about them bringing all your friends are able to come over, and that was real cool. So I came over one time, you guys were playing and what have you, and it was a Friday night fish fry. Lord have mercy. Rev, what's your memories of your Friday night fish fries?
Well, let me just say, Rock, that is something that we did. When you start talking about family and bringing us together in a close-knit, every Friday from the time that they were little all the way up to COVID, we have met every Friday at the house for seafood dinner on Friday nights. Everybody, even in spite of their careers, their relationships, everybody broke their schedules between 6 and 7. We met for dinner, and we did that every Friday from then all the way up to COVID, when it became too bad for us to get together.
Because that was when I came, it had to be like maybe 91 or 90. So you had been doing it before that, and continued until 2020.
That's right. That's right.
See, somewhere in some book that I read about, you know, how to get along in a family or whatever, that's, you know, have some real, if not sacred, semi-sacred routine.
Yes.
That's it.
So I haven't eaten today. Now I'm talking about this fish
I haven't either.
I'm talking about this fish fry. Have you ever seen that
Having
fish come up
flashback.
out that hot grease and slapping it on that bread with some mustard? Oh, that was a special time. So to my audience, again, I want to go back to, I say this is Washington, D.C.'s first family of faith. You see the parents, you see the children, and I wanted to name it First Family of Faith because as I look at all of them, as I look at the four sitting before you, it's hard pressed for me to imagine this kind of outcome without faith being at the root of all of you.
Absolutely.
And DC's First Family of Faith because you guys, Rev hasn't just been a pastor here. I described Union Temple Baptist Church at one point as saying it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week ministry. They don't play. They don't talk the talk.
Absolutely.
When they talk ministry, they walk the walk. They visit the sick. They communicate and visit and have relationships with the incarcerated, you know, with the youth programs. Just the youth programs, you know, were so impressive. Now, I didn't know what was going to happen when I asked, how did y'all meet? But I know that so many times when I've asked a husband and wife, how did you meet? There's typically a different story being told. So let me ask you, Rev, your pastoral journey. Look, it was 43 years, so I know you can't answer that necessarily in a sound bite, but I did want to see you hear you express what you might have thought, what was, throughout that time, what might have been your toughest challenges and what were your greatest triumphs?
I think the toughest challenge was being different. And not being afraid to be different. You know, because there were many who thought, this man is crazy.
Yeah.
All the first, Union Temple had so many firsts. First church to have alcohol and drug program in the church. I brought 45 recovering drug addicts and alcoholics with me to Union Temple when I came. And it goes on and on. The first to have praise dance ministry. List just goes on and on. So, and coming to Anacostia, the Southeast, had a whole lot of opportunities to go to places with established churches, but came over here and people said, "You out of your mind."
Yeah, over in that hood.
Yeah, in the worst part of the city.
Southeast.
But that was the greatest challenge, but the greatest victory was seeing literally thousands of people's lives turned around because they were given value in a place, which was, of course, our motto, "It's a family affair," bringing the whole community together in every kind of way possible. The largest festival on the East Coast, Unifest, 2-day affair with almost 200,000 people out here for 2 days, on and on, those kinds of things. I think to me that's the greatest victory, to see people's lives, see the realities of spirituality come to bear in terms of people realizing what that religiosity is not about and what spirituality is about.
Yes.
So do me a favor, stay right there for a second. So explain the difference.
The difference is religion is the process. It comes from the word religere, to reconnect back to your original state as a spiritual being, to who you were created to be. Unfortunately, religion gets in the way of that. So spirituality is a higher level of awareness of consciousness of who you are, what you're capable of doing, and what you can become. And that capability has been capped by religion. And what we have worked at for 43 years is to take the cap off so people can realize how high they really can go, what they really can be.
You'll make me say hallelujah.
Yes.
I remember an incident. Somebody in the community, and this is Southeast Washington D.C.
This is.
Maybe it's a little less impoverished now than it was,
Right.
but it certainly was an impoverished community, and this beautiful, beautiful complex sits in the middle of it. And I'm sure it was tempting to some of those who were impoverished. And correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but somewhere there was a break-in and somebody stole something, drum, the organ. Somebody stole the organ. And, needless to say, there was angst and disappointment about that. But what I remember is being told that some righteous brothers in the church, who were some of those who had turned their lives around from that kind of antisocial behavior, went into the community, and all of a sudden the drums were back in here.
That's right.
It wasn't just the drums back in here, but the kids who participated in the burglary and in the theft was sitting in the pew listening to the message.
Yeah.
Now, that's the kind of church. That's the kind of church this was.
Yeah.
Let me jump over to you, Anika.
Yes.
Sister Anika, pastor, senior pastor.
Yes.
Now, Anika, when I talked to Rev, we recently had an event here. So when I talked to Reverend Wilson about whether or not the church was available, he said, "I really don't know. You got to talk to Anika." And I was like, "Okay, she really is in charge." So, is that something you imagined, something you dreamed about, something you thought was going to happen, or?
I can't say that I saw that I would be a senior pastor.
You can? Or?
No, I cannot. I did not know that. I knew that I would be making impact, that I would be helping people to live better lives, that I would be healing in the community, but I didn't know I would be pastoring in a lead position.
When did it come upon you?
Well, I think it happened in phases and stages as I feel like I said yes on one level and it opened up a door to a yes on the next level. So I started off with just serving in ministry, very young, counseling, supporting, then leading worship, then a deacon, then a minister. So I feel like there were just stair steps that continued to open for me as I came into my God identity and embraced who I was. Yeah.
So you got your PhD.
Yes.
What did you get it in?
It's in pastoral counseling with the emphasis on counseling, education, and supervision.
Uh-huh. Who do I have to call make the point? you get that to me later on.
Yes. Yes. So it's about the integration of spirituality and mental health and wellness.
Yeah. So, Sister Mary Wilson, you and Reverend Wilson traveled to South Africa. We all went together. This was when Riddick Bowe had won the championship, and it might be too long of a story to tell, but I'm quite unsure whether or not Riddick Bowe would have even won the championship had it not been for Reverend Wilson. That's a story perhaps I'll tell at another time. But when we got an opportunity to go to South Africa, I remember getting a lot of criticism after Bowe won the title, and then we did a big deal with HBO, and he had his first fight at Madison Square Garden on February the 6th, 1993, and on February the 18th, 1993, 12 days later, we landed in Johannesburg, South Africa. Well, the criticism was, well, I thought, and we went bearing significant contributions to Nelson Mandela and the African National Congress, and we went to Somalia and gave them a lot of stuff. And the part of the criticism just before we left and when we got back, they said, well, if you all went bearing those gifts, doesn't charity begin at home? And my reply to that was, we went home to give some of our charity. So I look at photos from that time, and I just would like to get your reflection on that trip.
Wow, that trip was pivotal in that it helped to further solidify or connect us with our home base. Our home base, we were home. And the opportunities, Rock, that you afforded us and that you made available to us, because that was also right at the pivotal moment when South Africa was becoming independent.
Yeah.
And just to be in that rich environment, hearing just, you're in a group, and then somebody just breaks out in song, and then you see the dancers and the boot dancers and everyone. It was just so rich. It was so rich. And then being able to actually meet Madiba and meet Nelson Mandela, and that picture will always be part of our history.
Well, when you say picture, I'm telling you, man, you guys were there. We were there, and look, folks, we went to dinner at Nelson Mandela's home.
Yes.
He hadn't become president yet. They didn't have one man, one vote yet.
Right.
We went there prior to that time. I remember going to a little boxing gym that was down in the valley, and armored trucks pulling up, in a very intimidating, threatening way. And, some of my juvenile stuff that I got to work out through some counseling. with Sister Anika, some of my juvenile stuff came out. And I told the kids, y'all don't have to be afraid. And so I went out and pointed up to them. Maybe it wasn't the best thing to do.
I remember.
But I went out and pointed up at them and laughed at them. And so the kids felt more emboldened. So, but see, we have a picture, and we'll show it. We're going to get this picture and show it during the broadcast. So I want everybody to see it, and I think you'll love it. So I'm talking to your mom, Lili, about travel.
Yes.
That was to South Africa.
Yes.
So I think it was 95. How old were you in 95?
Oh my goodness, really?
Oh, no, you don't have to say if you don't want.
16, 17.
Okay, so I had gone on a trip. What was it called? They had this TV show, and part of this TV show, it was a show called Pathfinders.
Yes.
So I had gone to Alaska and rafted 90 miles down the Copper River. And boy, that was kind of challenging for me because I can't swim and I don't like big bears. And being on a raft and going over some rapids wasn't necessarily my thing. It was like, okay, I did it. I ain't trying to do it again. You know, I called, I said the national bird of Alaska was mosquitoes. That's how big they were. But I came back, and so the producers were like, we're really looking for someone that might feel adventuresome, somewhere in their mid-teens or something like that. Make a long story short, Lili was the one that went next.
Yes.
And if you would just share a little bit about that and some of your reflections of that, and what Pathfinders did, it paired people of very different backgrounds.
Yes.
Take it over.
Yes, so we were paired. I selected one of my good friends, childhood friends from right here.
Yeah.
And we were paired with Ronald Reagan Jr. And at that time, we just, we knew who he was, who his dad was, and he was also a ballerina, I think.
And look, and in case y'all don't know or haven't seen or heard his commercials,
Right.
he is, I don't know whether he was then or not, but now he speaks of being an avowed atheist, and I ain't scared of dying in hell. So Lili was on an Alaskan excursion.
It was the most pleasant experience. I mean, you speak of rafting down for 90 miles. Well, me and my other Black American princess bestie, we had never been in the wild. So just imagine, we are from Southeast Washington, being just planted in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, oh, this is your first time kayaking. Great, you're gonna kayak to the next camp. Mind you, that's like 5 miles away.
My Lord.
Yes, and if you wanna eat, you gotta catch it. Yeah. So that was something we were not used to.
Oh, so you had to fish?
We fished.
Oh,
that
Lord.
was my first time fishing, and I caught something the first time. So it was an amazing, enriching experience, but I'm like, first time, last time. You could definitely find me glamping from now on. Yes, not camping. But it was amazing. It was amazing. Everything that you see in the movies, we got to experience it firsthand, including bears. But it was an amazing, amazing experience.
Yeah.
Very rich.
Wow. Yeah. How did you guys feel? Her being gone to Alaska, and what did you all think?
Excited for her because I know that's one of the greatest ways you can learn by traveling. Until I saw the video and saw and heard the story about the bear being outside of the tent. Raised the anxiety quite a bit about what could have happened.
Yes.
But previous to that, it was a great experience that I was excited that she was able to go and be a part of.
Yes.
Okay, ladies.
Yes.
Cheering. This one y'all was cheering.
Yes.
I made a note to ask y'all, what's the strongest memories of the things you hope mom and dad didn't find out?
Oh, are we going to do this today?
Yes.
Didn't find out.
We hope they didn't.
Oh.
Well, I definitely, honestly, I was more bold.
Did they know you stole my car?
I didn't steal it.
Oh, wait.
Wait, did I
You
steal
had a car that you didn't give her permission to drive, but she got in your car.
Yes.
So she stole your car.
So, yes. So she didn't have a license.
Oh, my.
I had a car.
Oh, she was daring.
And I was
She
away
was
at
daring.
school, and
Yeah.
she would drive my car. Did y'all know that?
But they
Now.
well,
First time hearing that.
they did
she
know
used to
that I
drive
would take
Brownie.
a car without a license later on, once it became my car. because I would have to take my friends home to get clothes. You know, everybody was at our house.
Yeah.
And they would be gone, you know, saving the world. South Africa, enjoy. But we had needs. So I needed to take my friends to get clothes so they could stay over.
I see. I see.
I think my story
That would be
is
something to be glad that mom and daddy didn't find out.
Yeah, I think my story is like TV was not. It was called the Idiot Box.
Yes.
And so
By
we
who?
had it
By the
by dad,
Okay.
by the authoritarian. It was
Okay,
called
all
the
right.
Idiot Box. Nothing good comes of that. Turn that Idiot Box off. So we had it down to a science.
Yes.
We actually watched as much TV as we wanted, and we could time his arrival. We knew what it sounded like when he was coming up the driveway, and so we would quickly
Get up and start sweeping.
we would get up and grab a broom or grab a piece of paper or a book, and you know. And he'd come in and be so proud of us because we were not having that Idiot Box on. Yeah, but it would be on all day. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So one of the things that I think is somewhat iconic about Union Temple Baptist Church, Reverend Wilson's leadership, when he said a willingness to do things different, there was a certain love for his people, and that's black people, that's just black people everywhere. And a boldness, with that love, there came a boldness and a willingness to do things his way, to do things your way. As such, when he was, you know, everybody liked to claim how much they loved Martin Luther King when he was doing what he was doing. A whole lot of people didn't, they lied.
Right.
You know, people, I was the original Muhammad Ali fan. No, you weren't. No, you weren't. No, you thought he ran his mouth too much and all that. After all of his accomplishments, and look, his status in Washington, D.C., never a man to seek status, just doing the work that gave him status. Part of when I asked you about challenges, one of the things that I wanted to get into was, you allowed Minister Louis Farrakhan to come into the pulpit. You remember the first year?
1977.
That's really shortly after he
Shortly after he started. Rebuild.
So, what was the opposition? What did you hear about your doing that?
Well, let me say it like this. Internally, by that time, the church had grown. I came in 73 with about 25 members. It had grown to about 800. When he spoke that afternoon, we went from 800 to 400 overnight.
Wow.
You know, because people, you know, very spooky. Oh, God's going to get him.
Yeah.
Lightning going to strike. Thunder going to roll. God's going to get this man. So what did I do? Invite him back the next year, and the next year, and the next year. Every year from 1977 all the way up until I retired.
Wow. And on the flip side of that, you went to Savior's Day.
Right.
Every year. Okay, so I've got to editorialize on this, because what y'all might not know is the absolute critical, influential, shoulder to the wheel responsibility that Rev took on and the position he had that helped bring, hey, we all applaud and honor Minister Louis Farrakhan for bringing over 1 million people at the Capitol on October the 16th, 1995. I have heard Minister Farrakhan speak out of his mouth the words that said how invaluable it was for the work that Willie Wilson did in that process. Did you get any resistance when you supported that effort?
Got a lot of resistance, but you know, I think Dr. Haidt, who taught me a lot about coalition building.
Dr. Dorothy Haidt speaks
Dr. Haidt,
with the hat.
She said to me, if you can approach people and let them know it's not about, find something that they can relate to and identify with. There are a lot of pastors who didn't want to participate, but because of their relationship with me, and I could call names, but I won't, but I mean national figures all across this country, and they said, I'll do it for you. I don't like Minister Farrakhan, but if you say do it, I will do it. I went to all the national conventions. We met in Chicago, and I'll just say this, Rob. Every denomination in the country was there at Reverend Clay Evans' church, and he allowed us to have a meeting there. And everybody agreed, but this is before technology, no social media. Every organization said, the National Baptist USA, Pentecostals of the world, AME, Zion, everybody's on board. But Joseph Lowry stands up, Reverend Joseph Lowry, he says, don't anybody go out here and say these people are on board yet, because they have to go back to their parent body, the boards, and get complete commission. We flew back in here, and I won't call that individual's name, national figure, who fought very hard against the Million Man March up until the last 3 weeks. Flew back in here to Washington. He runs straight to the microphone, said, we got AME Zion, we got AME, we got Baptist, we got this, we got that. News people writing notes, they run to their phones, call the boards of all these groups, and they say, no, not yet. Almost killed the march, but it was because we persevered and continued to bring everybody together. And of course, as you would know, the majority out there were brought together by people out of the church. And I will say that the women in this church registered over 100,000 people in the DMV.
Yeah. Folks, when I say this is a 24/7 ministry, just think about that statistic right there. That's real. 100,000 came out of this. 100,000 registrants came out of this, out of the work of this church and out of this ministry. So I want to ask you guys about, when I think about the Nation of Islam, Minister Farrakhan, all that he has done and how powerful he has been, as I root for them, as I love him and root for them, you know, I don't have any idea about what their succession plan is. The minister is in his 90s. We hope he lives another 90. But Rev, when it came to you thinking about retiring, was it your passion that your daughter would take over, or how did that come about?
Well, you know, we had worked through stages. I'll tell you a very significant event that took place, which was the time that I said to myself and to the executive board, it's time for me to retire and for my daughter to take over. We were doing a joint executive committee meeting. I had my stuff together. I mean, I had it on paper.
Yeah.
I passed out my little leaflets and everything. When I finished, she pulled down the screens, turned on the technology, and did all of her graphs and charts. Yeah. When she got up, immediately I got up, I said, it's time for me to retire. Right? And that was the day that I said it to the congregation. From that point, we began to plan. We began. And it's so vitally important, you know. Some leaders hold on too long.
Yes.
And they are old and decrepit and standing up, and the church is dying. This way, with a clear line of succession, she's here. If she needs my advice or support, I'm here to give it. And we can see how the work goes on and continues. And I will say this, had she not taken over when she did, I don't know if this church would exist. Wow. What they were able to do with the technology and bringing together the staff to do it, I didn't have that. I didn't have that expertise. I didn't have that. So very much the survival of this ministry was her taking over when she did.
Folks, this show is DC's first family of faith, Union Temple Baptist Church, led for the last, let me see, you did 43, and how long you been doing?
Well, officially 1, but through the pandemic, 3.
Yes, and so 45 years of leadership here. Sister Mary Wilson, I have to ask you this. I know that a mama is always a mama, no matter how old their kids are.
Absolutely.
There's some mothering instincts. when the idea started to germinate about your firstborn, with all the hair, becoming the senior pastor, you know that's a very, very heavy cross. You know that's not an easy job. That becomes some serious responsibility. How did you feel about that as the mom?
As a mother, I felt so proud, first of all, and I was so honored to have seen even whatever impact I had on her ministry and in her life and in whatever influence that I had. I was so proud of it because she's standing on our shoulders. And so the things that where our limitations were, she was able to stand on our shoulders and peek over and do more than we could ever think about doing. So I knew of her capabilities. I knew of both of their capabilities, that they were leaders. This one has been counseling since she was 13 years old. You know, she would talk people out of who would run away and say, oh, just meet me at my house, catch a cab, and my mother pay for it. You know, because you need to come in.
Wow.
This one has led, I mean, there have been people out in the streets who've been doing things that were not good for them. And she has led, the women of the church have gone out and rescued them. So I knew that she had it in her to, you know, be a leader and to have the heart of people.
Lillian, do you have a favorite song that your mom performed?
Oh my goodness.
That's one. Is there a favorite? And it's a two-part question. Is there a favorite sermon you remember hearing from your dad?
Oh goodness. I used to love hearing my mom sing "Going Up Yonder" back in the day. To be with my Lord.
Come on now. Come on.
I'm going.
Can we all do that? Can y'all all do that?
That's the thing about our family. We definitely have that. We will break out in a moment to some harmony. But that is a song that I remember. And another sermon, oh my goodness, it was so many. Diamonds in your own backyard.
Diamonds, yes.
Diamonds
yes,
in your own
yes.
backyard.
How about you? Favorite song from Mama? Favorite sermon from Daddy?
I think it's gonna be like, there are traditional sermons my dad preached that's like staples in our mind, and one of them for me is "Remember the Greasy Bag."
Remember the greasy bag.
Yes, and it just talks about remembering the traditions and the things that kept us. When you be riding down the road, you couldn't stop places, so we had a bag with fried chicken in it to hold us over.
Yeah.
So that sermon is, I think, one of those staple sermons. As far as Mommy singing, everything she sings, anything with the Richard Smallwood singers, and I just remember seeing videos of her singing with them, and those beautiful melodies and that soprano voice is what I remember from that time.
Okay, so let me put a little pressure on you.
Yeah.
What's Senior Pastor Anika Wilson-Brown's vision for the future for Union Temple Baptist Church?
Wow. So the biggest part of the vision is maintaining the legacy of who we are and what we have been throughout the years, but presenting it to the world in a new way, in a way that is relevant for where we are today, to make impact today. And so that takes big adjustments. Yeah. We used to be a neighborhood and community church. We can't be that anymore because of the displacement that's happening around us. We're threatened every day with folks wanting to take our property and redevelop it. And we're blessed to be able to own the block, because a lot of churches are being pushed out to the suburbs, but we get to stay here. We're committed to staying here and building, reaching the lost, liberation, empowering, letting folks know that we receive them and love them no matter where they came from, you know, and no matter who they are in life. Maintaining that same vision, but just pushing it out there in different ways is I think, what we're called to do at this
Rock,
time.
can I just add one thing?
Sure.
And that is our two sons who are not here.
Oh,
Yeah.
please,
They are
that's
very
my fault.
much-
That's my fault.
They're very much an integral part of this ministry. One
Yes.
is a trustee on the board. He's an attorney.
Yeah.
And the other is a marine scientist. But, of course, he does meditation workshops and
Yeah.
leads our manhood training program.
Yeah.
So it's all the whole family that has made this work. And
Yes.
those two brothers give
Yes.
great support to these
Great
two.
support.
Yeah, yeah. It
Great
was
support.
absolutely my failure not to have brought them into the fold here. And I'm really glad you did that. You know, we get carried away.
Absolutely.
yeah.
So thank you. I think
Absolutely.
that is definitely well deserved and appropriate. So I saw a picture recently. I think you posted it on Facebook, or I saw it somewhere. And it was a kind of basic and simple photo, like of a backyard, but from the backyard, you saw a body of water.
Yes,
And you said something about our home.
yes.
Where was that?
That's our home in Newport News, Virginia. Years ago, we would often speak of one day we wanted to have a house on the water
Yeah.
back at his home base in Newport News, Virginia. And about, 14, 15 years ago, it became reality. We were just said, let's just look around for some property.
Yeah.
And went on the street, and the person who was showing us around, it actually used to be his house. And he said, but wait till you see the backyard.
Yeah.
I did not know the backyard was an entire view of Norfolk, Virginia,
My
and
Lord.
Portsmouth, Virginia, that we
Yeah.
could see across that water. So
Yeah.
that has been like a sub-home base for us. For our families, have reunions. We have a reunion in the backyard every year. People can kayak, they can swim, they can boat, and even my nephew has a house down the street now. So it's a place for us to go for peace, for calm, and just as that picture showed, that's how serene it is.
That's
and we
what I-
need and
That's what I
deserve
saw.
that space.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
what I saw, man. I was like, oh, Reverend Wilson,
Yes.
roll over there or something.
Right.
Yeah, because that's what that was.
The
man. That
beach is
really-
right on in part of our backyard.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, you know, guys don't know how much I was hoping that this show could be done.
Yes.
You know, when you're in leadership positions, you get a lot of slings and arrows.
Absolutely.
People don't rush to lift you up, to talk about what you're doing. Talk about the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
Talk about what you're really doing. So in leadership, it's so easy to get beamed up and banged up and darts thrown at you and all the rest. And I just, before I finished doing what I was doing, very much thought it was important and wanted to be able to do a platform. One, to just show you guys and to show my viewers what family life can be like. No, it exists out there. No, we ain't all against each other's throat. No, that's not what it is. When I started doing my program, you know, I often say, hosts come and say they don't have an agenda. I had an agenda, and that was to show the best of blackness,
Yeah.
unapologetically. And folks, y'all are seeing that here. Y'all are seeing that right now.
Yes.
And so I'm going to say it for Senior Pastor Anika now.
Yes.
And the family. You know, a visit to Union Temple Baptist Church is something special. It's something good for your soul. I know you all have always been just a welcome everybody
Absolutely.
with open arms.
Open arms.
And I'm sure that, you know, you would welcome those who are listening today to come here
Without a
and
doubt.
to feel what's special. I'm going to say this. I gave a speech one time, and I said, I had gone to the Vatican and saw service. I had been in Bangkok and Thailand in one of their, big places, and sort of the Buddha, there were thousands and thousands of people there, and the feeling that I would get in here, there would be times when I'd be sitting right out there, and Reverend Wilson would have preached for a few minutes. There's a washboard over there that Reverend Wilson used to play.
Yeah, it's still over there.
You would get that washboard.
And he still plays.
It doesn't matter. Okay. And one of the times when I was here, Mike Wallace from 60 Minutes was here.
Right.
And he saw the congregation be so extraordinarily spirit-filled that Reverend Wilson didn't preach anymore. He had only preached 10 minutes or so. Song had taken over, then the spirit had taken over, and this place was a rocket ship.
Yes. Yes.
If it sounds like I love this place, and I love this thing,
That's right.
it's because it's been very important in my life, and it was important for me to sit with you all. So all four of you, thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Folks, I'm leaving you. You can see what a kind of difficult talk and a smile on my face. Because yes, indeed, this was special. Thanks for watching. Again, I have to say what my producer tells me to do, because I'm not so good at doing that, is share this video, like this video, and subscribe to the Rock Newman Show 2.0. Go in peace. God bless you.
all right. Great.
Oh, man.
Great. That went good. That went good. That went good.